Hello and welcome to the Indie Plus exhibition game on Saturday, January 17th. We are here today to play The Clay That Woke by Paul Czege. I'm Brendan Conway.
I'm Rich Rogers.
I am Jen Martin.
And I'm Mark Diaz-Truman.
And I'm Paul Czege.
And we're really excited to play this game today. I just want to call out before we get started that the game's going to be basically the equivalent of rated R. It's probably going to have some warnings for sexual content and violence, so just be aware of that before you go forward. And this podcast in general does conform with the Indie Plus community standards. So with that said, go ahead, take it away, Paul.
Okay. So I'll tell you right up front. I've got new stuff prepped for it. I've run some of the same stuff a few times at conventions, and I thought I'd mix it up and do some new stuff. So this is so even if you've played in a convention demo with me, you haven't seen this.
Cool.
So what I thought I'd do is give you the same kind of overview that I give if I'm doing a convention demo, tell you a little bit about the game, and then we do character stuff, and then we'd get into it. Sound good?
That sounds great.
So it's a rich setting game, and I don't know, can I ask, have any of you read it?
I have not read it. I know that it has Minotaurs.
Okay.
I have skimmed it.
Okay.
I have not read it, sorry.
No, that's totally cool. So it's this once great civilization in decline. It's thousands of years old. It's a human civilization on the margins of this jungle, and the jungle is encroaching on the human civilization. And buildings are crumbling, and technology's been lost. They used to be able to make steel, and now they can't, so they make bronze. When rooftops collapsed on buildings, they replaced them with thatch instead of reconstructing them. The illustrations in the book pretty much give you the picture. The Minotaurs are a found species. Generations ago, somebody pulled 4 infant Minotaurs from the mud of the river, and at first the Minotaurs didn't live well in the human society. They they just couldn't fit in. After a few generations, they came up with a code of life conduct that helps them live well in human society, and it's called silence. And I'll tell you about that in a bit. All Minotaurs are all male. They're this sort of underclass in society. They get used for menial jobs and dangerous jobs. Minotaurs are nameless until they earn a name, until they're given a name by another Minotaur in a certain situation that can happen. The society itself was it was great without having a central government or religion. It had a hereditary sort of almost neighborhood nobility called the Imperii, and they they formed great. They were the cultural center of the world because of the way the nobility. They're not exactly nobility, but they're a bloodline, and the way they collected taxes and the way they kept the jungle at bay and the things that they did culturally. So the Imperii are still around, but they've really faded from their former stature. They're petty, sort of turn inward on family politics. It's definitely not the same as it was. Okay, so silence, right? Silence is the Minotaur code of life conduct, and they try to adhere to it. Be courageous, act with wisdom, work for justice and the social good. Do not use the names of women. Do not express your emotions. The core mechanic of the game involves drawing tokens from a bowl called the Crater of Lots. And the Minotaur code of conduct, silence, has its own tokens associated with it. So you'll have a supply of tokens. Some of them will be silence tokens, and that supply will fluctuate over the course of the game. So I said Minotaurs are an underclass. The jobs are given to you. You pretty much don't have a choice. I've prepped stuff, and I'll put you in job situations. It's not a total lock-in, right? Because just because that's your employment doesn't mean that you have to like it, and you can get a new job. And that's related to the name tokens, whether you get a new job or not. So you can basically, by the fluctuations in your token supply, you can force me to put you into a new job situation.
Okay.
So all right, let's talk about the token fluctuations, right? You've got courage tokens, you've got mind tokens, you've got name tokens, you've got silence tokens. You can get other types, gift tokens, and I've got some that are specific to me that represent adversity, to you in situations. If you ever bottom out your silence tokens, you go frantic. It represents a certain amount of emotional distress, and you run for the jungle. And where and the jungle is surreal. There are supernatural entities there. You have basically encounters with strange stuff in the jungle. It can be dangerous. It can be, wondrous. It can be creepy. And when you have encounters in the jungle, you earn silence tokens back. So it's renewing for you. You can so by earning your silence tokens back, you can come back into the city and get down to business again.
Mm-hmm.
This Crater of Lots, we use it in 4 kinds of game situations that we find ourselves in. The game is basically role-playing, with me framing scenes and playing NPCs and you playing your characters, and and we'll cut from player to player, and we're looking for 4 kinds of fictional situations to determine whether we're going to use this or not. We're looking for violent encounters. So if something gets to the point of violence, we're going to be thinking that we might need to use this. We're looking for dangerous situations. So something like a mudslide, maybe, or finding yourself in a bridge is collapsing or something like that. We'll be looking for that. An interpersonal disagreement with one of my characters. If you Minotaurs argue with each other, we don't use this to resolve it. But if you get into an interpersonal disagreement about something, then with one of my game master characters, then we'll go to this. And the 4th situation is an unnatural encounter. The big one is there are these supernatural entities in the jungle called the Voices, and if you encounter one of those, we're going to definitely be using the Crater. Other things may or may not be, unnatural, will-o'-the-wisps or things like that. The way we do this is we're all just sort of looking to see whether these fictional situations seem, it seems like that's what we've got going on, and then we're going to use the Crater. You're paying as much attention as I am to decide, hey, this is pretty dangerous. Let's go to, do we go to the Crater at this point? With the unnatural encounters, it's probably just a little bit more my call, because I know a little bit more about what's going on naturally and unnaturally in the game setting. So, but generally, we're all looking for that stuff. And And when we get to 1, I'll tell you a little bit about what the dynamics are of using the crater. The game, and this is the last thing I'll say as overview, it's intended for campaign play, so you'll get a little taste of it right now, but it won't feel like a full thing, really. The game is intended to be played to a conclusion, though. It just might take you multiple sessions, and the conclusion is, out in the jungle there are these trees that are taller than the jungle canopy with very few leaves. They're called the Watchers. And it's said that the Watchers will frondesce and bloom again when civilization below them is going to enter into a new era of greatness. So as a play group, just like you're looking for crater situations, you're looking for that as well. Play the game to the point that it becomes obvious to you whether the Watchers are going to bloom or not, and civilization below is going to enter a new age of greatness or not.
Or not.
Or not. So that's pretty much the thumbnail overview. Let's do character stuff. There are 4 character archetypes, and I gave you a link to the character sheets, to the player sheets. With 4 players, we should probably just divvy them up, and you should pick which one you want to be.
Sounds good.
Sure. Yeah.
The game definitely starts with sketchy characters. You don't start with a name. You and you start with an initial set of tokens, but your character is very similar to any other Minotaur of the same archetypes. Starting out. The 4 archetypes are a leader Minotaur, the philosopher, the advocate, and the soldier. The archetype isn't your job role. It's who you would be in a great Minotaur society. So it's your soul potential, basically. The thing that makes a Minotaur, the Minotaur archetypes different is they start with slightly different starting token supplies, and the refresh mechanics are different and archetype specific. So a leader Minotaur, for instance, refreshes his mind tokens by having a conversation with a philosopher Minotaur about civic or cultural issues. So you roleplay that, and you replenish your mind tokens. A philosopher Minotaur refreshes his mind tokens when you see him reacting emotionally to a cultural problem. An advocate Minotaur refreshes his courage tokens when you see him help another Minotaur's effort to avoid breaking silence. He refreshes his mind tokens when we see another Minotaur tell him a truth or possible truth. Those are specific outcomes from drawing tokens from the creator of lots, by the way, truths and possible truths. There are ways that you can figure out things about the setting. And the soldier Minotaur, he refreshes his mind tokens when you see him make a choice on instinct and act on it when the best choice isn't clear. He refreshes his name tokens when you see him say yes to a dangerous request when it's clear he'd rather say no. He refreshes to 4. He refreshes his courage tokens when you see him commit to not using violence in addressing a specific upcoming situation. So the difference is the personality and how they renew themselves. Take a look at the player sheets. If you've got a preference, go ahead and state it. But let's just divvy them up.
I would like to be a philosopher Minotaur.
There aren't many role-playing games where you can play a philosopher, so
Yeah, I'm in.
You're in.
So Mark is going to greedily take it before anybody else has this unique opportunity, because Mark is really kind like that.
Does anybody else want to play a philosopher?
No, Mark.
Until you. Now that I don't have it as an option,
Now I don't want it.
tempting.
Now that you've touched it.
Now that I've
like
licked it.
I like the advocate, so I'm gonna snap that one up because
Cool.
I'm definitely not going to play a leader, so I'll take soldier.
Okay. And that leaves me with leader. Yeah, Paul, just out of curiosity, so do you need to choose different archetypes? Like it works perfectly here, but let's just say two of us did want to be a soldier. Is that kosher?
Yeah, it's. I mean, the way the game master would handle that is for the archetypes where you need to have a conversation with a certain other type of Minotaur. You'd make up NPC Minotaurs to fill that out, and they'd be background characters that you happen to end up having a conversation with in the market or whatever.
Got it. So there's something cool to having it be an actual other PC, because then I'm having a conversation with like Jen or Mark as opposed to the background NPC, but it will still totally work.
Yeah, it'll totally work.
Great.
It's definitely cooler to have at least 3 players. To get some player interaction going. When you're down into the 2-player zone, it feels like a lot of one-on-one game master role playing and stuff.
Right. Gotcha. Okay.
So alrighty. So the way the game book does it is this is a so these are the tokens that a philosopher Minotaur would start with. So I'm looking at page 29 here. So it just gives you a thing and says, start with these. So the Philosopher Minotaur starts with 2 courage. Those are the ones with the hearts on them. 4 mind, 3 silence, and 1 life token. The player sheet has circles on it. When we're playing around the table, you'd have stacks of tokens in front of you, and you'd use those circles just to record at the end of the game session. Give your tokens back to the game master. Record at the end of the game session how many you've got left of each type, and then at the beginning of the next game session, the game master knows what to hand back to everybody. But in this case, since we're all remote from each other, you can just record what you've got in the little circles on the sheet, or make yourself a note somewhere. So Mark took his notes. I could see him writing.
Curiously scribbling. How many name tokens do I get?
You don't start with any, but we'll talk about that.
Okay,
Name tokens
cool.
typically you earn and play, but they're fun enough that for this purpose, I think we'll try and work some in.
Okay.
So this is what the leader Minotaur starts with. He starts with 3 courage, 3 mind, 3 silence, and 1 life. The advocate starts with exactly the same as the leader. He starts with 3 courage, 3 mind, 3 silence, and 1 life. And the soldier starts with 4 courage, 2 mind, 3 silence, and 1 life. So let's talk about those name tokens. There are various ways that you can earn them, and you can get them as an outcome of a crater outcome. You get one. You get them in other ways too, like when you actually receive a name and things like that. There's an end of game thing that we do as well, where you can end up with a name increase. So. So let's talk about those name tokens. One of the things that we could do, because they're cool and they lend us to getting some different outcomes from the creator, is I'll let you trade some of your silence for name. So if somebody wants to trade like 2 silence away and have 2 name instead and be down to just 1 silence, that puts us into like a more advanced situation in the game. It suggests that you've lost some silence in situations in the game, or it suggests that you've broken silence in some way by expressing expressing a want in a situation. A Minotaur who says, let me be your proxy for this duel, for instance, is expressing a want, and I would take a silence token away from you in that situation. If you use the name of a woman, the Minotaurs come up with nicknames so that they don't use women's names. But if you use the name of a woman, intentionally or unintentionally, I would take a silence token from you. So we could assume that one of you is, had a few conflicts or has broken silence, and you could start with a couple of name tokens instead of silence tokens. Anybody up for that? It means the lower silence means you're at more of a risk of running off to the jungle, which would be interesting to see in a quick situation as well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm down to do that if it's cool with everybody.
More than one of you could do that if you want. It's up to no more than two probably, because otherwise we'd have you all off in the jungle in the first couple of scenes.
I'm thinking about it, but I don't know. I'm hesitant.
As the leader, you've got a pretty cool thing that the other players don't have. On your player sheet, there's a space for a herd.
Mm-hmm.
So some of your refreshes are related to the herd. It's like if the herd's impressed by you. It's let me see here. Right. So you refresh your courage when we see you learn again the value or greatness or be impressed by your herd. So at some point in the game, once you've gotten into it a little bit, it's a way of defining your character. You either pick some NPCs or you tell me to invent some that are your herd. They're your posse. They're they might be rivals. They might be friends. And the game book uses an example like a couple of Minotaurs who hunt big dangerous iguanas or protect the city from big dangerous iguanas or something like that. So you could generalize and say it'd be, hey, cool, how about a couple of fishermen, or how about a couple of, whatever. And then I would invent them for you. Or, if you meet some cool Minotaurs during the game, you could say, how about if these guys are my herd? So you've got a pretty cool thing that makes you a little bit different. Let's see. So that's pretty good. Let me tell you about one last thing, and then we'll start in on it. One thing we do at the end of a game session, and we'll do it today, is at the very end. It's called the nameless conversation, and what it is I step back entirely, and you improvise some nameless Minotaurs from the setting. It could be a couple of fishermen. It could be, a couple of guys who work in the kitchen. It could be, whatever. Nameless Minotaurs, and you role play them. You can all do it. It could be 4 Minotaurs who happen to meet up at the market, and you have a conversation about the storyline of one of the player Minotaurs. And if these nameless Minotaurs focus on your Minotaur storyline, and you're down to just I think the rule is if you're down to just 1 silence token, and maybe 1 or 2 silence tokens, then you get a name number increase. And the name number is your name refresh number. So, ordinarily when you refresh courage, if you do it, you get 3. If you refresh mind, you get 3. Name number can go up. Name number starts at 0 and can go up. So through this mechanic of the nameless conversation at the end, you'll get your name number will go up, and you'll refresh to 2, 3, 4, 5 whenever you do a name refresh going forward in the game.
Cool.
Any questions?
No.
No, that sounds good.
All right. So let's do it. So what I usually do is I just set up situations, and I put player Minotaurs. I put player Minotaurs into it. So I'm going to tell you about a situation. So there's this fortune teller. A fairly young, talented woman, 27, 28-ish, and she does these public fortune tellings for for audiences in the evening, and what it is basically, her body is like painted off and gridded off in like geometric areas, and people buy an insect, a crawly insect like a beetle or a centipede or something like that, and put it on her shoulders, and then the insects move around into different zones and everything, and the path that the insect travels, she can interpret that, and she can tell what somebody's fortune is. So she's super talented, and it's it's a popular evening entertainment for people in the Degringolat is the setting, which means in collapse. So one of you is her one of you is her assistant, and I think Jen is the assistant to her. Her name is Dothafi, and so it's an evening performance that she's doing, and as her assistant, I mean, maybe you're handling the insects for people. They come in, they buy one from you. Dothafi is in front of the it's maybe like a little natural amphitheater area or something like that, and people can come up and put their insects on, and then she calls out people's fortunes. She says, "Who put this centipede on me? Who did? The centipede that's now on my hip. I think you've got a future ahead of you. You've got or you're in no, it's there's somebody you've been thinking about lately. You lost touch with them 10 years ago. They've been thinking about too. You really need to reach out and reconnect with them. She's a good fortune teller, right? And you're her assistant, and it is not the worst job you have ever had. You've had terrible jobs, and this one's decent, right? So in the audience, is another street performer. His name is Sevu, and he does like skits and stuff, right? Think Renaissance Fair type skits. And he's really not that talented. I mean, they just really aren't that good. But he's got it in his head that this fortune teller is eating his lunch. Her business is taking business away from him. He'd be doing better. He'd be so he's in the audience, and he's there with the Minotaur who works with him, doing these skits on the street, which are typically very dumb and not well attended, and so you're and so this is Brendan, is his assistant, and you're definitely hungry. You've not been bringing in a lot of money, and he's so the two of you have come to this. You don't have enough money to even buy an insect to even do the fortune telling, and he's just griping the whole time. He's like, she's not that good. She is. She's not. We've got to do something about this. We're gonna starve if we don't. And there's a bunch of people here, and it's fun. I mean, her fortunes are fun. People are having fun. And Seibu's having a hard time, and he's like, we got to figure something out. We need to do something. I'm thinking, how about a skit? We could just totally, we could show people, we could show her up with the right kind of skit.
If you think that's the best way to go, then I think that as long as the skit is tame.
What do you mean tame? Tame. This is war. This is, are you hungry? I'm hungry.
Well, I'm hungry, but I don't think the Oracle deserves any sort of harmful attention from the skit. As long as it's all in jest.
So what we need to do, and you guys are like having this sort of whispered conversation, like in the audience here,
Yeah.
What we need to do is, we need to drive her out. We need to embarrass her. We need to send her on our way. This is our turf. We were here doing this longer than she's been around, and it's.
But to be fair, there are many who enjoy the Oracle's act. Perhaps we could see our way to working with her or supplementing her act, helping her and splitting profits instead of simply trying to run her out.
Who's the boss and who's the employee here?
You are the boss. So
we're doing a skit, and it's gonna be. You just have to help me figure out the details. I've got some ideas. You know what? Scandal. There's a scandal. We are gonna create a scandal. It's gonna be good. Let's go work on it. So, and so he's hustling you out of there. And he grabs you by the bicep, and he hustles you out of there, and he says, "We just got to come up with the details. We are going to convince people that if they come to her and have their fortune read, that people are suffering consequences from that. They are suffering occult consequences from having their fortune read. We're going to tell this story."
That sounds potentially dangerous for the Oracle. Would not the people not only drive her out, but potentially harm her if they found that she was causing harm to others?
It won't be our fault.
Well, yes, in point of fact. I'm not sure I feel. Oh dear. I'm not sure I feel. Wait, feel. Do not express your emotions. Right, that thing. Well, I suppose we can work out the details as we go. Just try to keep it relatively tame. I would not want harm to come upon the Oracle or upon her assistant either.
Yeah, you're getting into a silence-breaking territory there. I'll probably let it slide at this point.
I appreciate you.
Not wanting to have something happen rather than wanting to have something happen is it's a fruitful void in the game. Over the course of play, a play group comes up with their own understanding of what silence is, in the same way that in old school D&D, a play group comes up with their understanding of alignments.
Interesting.
So in this case, he hustles you out of there, and he's got this plan to go make death masks or something like that to use, in your skit. So you guys are off out of there.
Healthy.
And so the performance continues, right? I mean, for the night, but you guys are gone. And then it gets to like the end of the evening, and so usually, Dothraki is pretty wiped, after an evening performance, and you do, Jen, you do all the cleanup, right? I mean, you're, and she just crashes. She goes back and crashes, right? But sometimes, fans come up at the end, and so yeah, and that happens, that happens tonight. That a Minotaur comes up, and he says, yeah, and he's, you know what? He's super hunky. He is a super hunky Minotaur. He comes up and he's like, would you like to go for a walk with me among the root bridges? And
Well, I have to finish my work.
no, not you. Her, the fortune teller.
Oh, I'm sorry, I misunderstood.
So you're like, yep, you're overhearing. You're overhearing this conversation.
Gotcha.
And she's like, he's like, you can tell she's wiped, but he's like, oh, come on, I've come to see you 3 times this week. You want to go. It'll be refresh. It'll be relaxing. And you could tell she's kind of wiped out, but she says okay. And so she looks over at you and she says, "You okay?"
Yes.
She says, "I'll be back." And so she goes off for her walk with this Minotaur fan. And they head off, for the river where the root bridges, cross over the various, streams and whatnot. So, you do some cleanup. Time passes. And you don't see her for a bit, and then she comes back, and she's sweated up. She's got blood on her hands, and she's really worked up. She's really agitated. She runs in basically. Everybody else is gone. You've packed up all the insects, and maybe you're even back at like your residence by this point. So she comes back there, and she's got blood on her, and she says, So here's this thing that right? Because you work with her. When she tells somebody's fortune, she learns a lot more about them than she actually reveals when she tells it. And this is sort of a problem for her because she knows people's secrets, and so she comes back and she's always been a little worried that someone would come to get her because she knows too much, and she discovers too much by doing what she does, And I mean, that's pretty much, she says, yeah, he tried to kill me. She's got like, bruises and strangle marks around her, around her throat. It's people are trying to hurt me because I know too much. I barely got away.
Why did you go with him?
Well, I don't know. I hoped it would be okay.
Can I get you a glass of water?
Yeah, that would be good. Yeah. So she sits down and she's just worked up. Yeah.
I'll tend to like whatever wounds or whatever I can.
Yeah. She's not really actually, injured herself very much. It's his blood. I mean, she put his eye out. And yeah, she's she's worked up. But we can cut from your scene and go on to other Minotaurs we haven't seen yet. So normally what I do when I prep it is I have a couple of different situations and cut back and forth between them. So let me tell you about another one. So Ilvamok Imperius. So he's of the hereditary bloodline. He's this nebbishy, sort of fairly corrupt judge. But it's starting to catch up with him. There's a woman who's challenging him for his judgeship. But it's not an election. It's a proxy duel. So they each have somebody who fights this proxy duel for them, and whoever wins the duel gets the next election cycle worth of being the judge. And of course he always wins. He's been a judge for 2 decades. And so he's hired a Minotaur to be his proxy duelist in this challenge for his position. And that Minotaur is Mark. So anyway, he's so the proxy duel is about to happen, and he comes into you, and he says, this he's got this leaf, and it's got some seed paste inside of it, and he says, here, consume this seed paste. It'll you'll have incredible energy. You won't even notice pain, and you'll have the advantage in the duel. So he gives you the seed paste, and then he says, and guess what? He says, she can't afford a proxy. She's going to be fighting for herself.
So what do I know about the seed paste? Is that kind of thing allowed, or is it frowned upon?
It would give you an advantage that she probably doesn't have. But wealthy people, buy elections all the time, so it's it falls into that category, really.
Say, is the seed paste really necessary then? Feels to be overkill.
Well, it cost me a little bit, so I think you should use it.
Very well. And do I? I mean, do I trust him in the sense that he would lose a lot if I was to be injured in this, right?
Yeah. He would. I mean, he doesn't want you to lose.
Right. Yeah, because it would be costly.
Yeah.
Great. So how do I? I mean, you said that we kind of are thrust into jobs, just like sort of. I would imagine through sort of a variety of social pressures, right?
Yeah.
Are we paid? Is it some the kind of thing where I actually receive money for working for this person?
Yeah. That's a really sort of, I left that intentionally sort of vague in the game setting. I wanted it to feel. I didn't want it to feel like work for hire. It should feel like you're a part of society. So you're thrust in these jobs through social pressures, but also they provide for your a roof over your head and an outlet for your talents, and you have talents that you hope to use, and so you hope to be able to do good things.
All right, cool. Yeah, so this is my this is my lot even more than a job, right? Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So I guess I'll eat the seed paste, I guess is the what you do with it.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, yeah.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and slowly but methodically kind of eat it.
Okay, so it's like a small little arena, and I'll tell you what you know about the woman, right? So and you learn this from another Minotaur. You learn this from another Minotaur who works for the judge as his bodyguard. He told you that this woman has a grudge against the judge because the judge made a ruling that this woman's husband could sell their daughter to another family who was childless if he wanted to, even though she objected to it. So the judge made that that decision. She didn't like it, and so now she's challenging him for his judgeship as a she's a reformist. We need a better judge. So and you found that out from the bodyguard Minotaur who works for the judge, who doesn't happen to be here right now.
Okay.
So so anyway, all right. So it's a small little like neighborhood arena, maybe more like a vacant lot, where some building crumbled down or whatever, and people sit on this broken stones and broken columns and stuff like that, and so you're out there with this woman. The rule on the duel is the first 5 minutes are just hitting, and then after that you can go to grappling and kicking and whatever, but just hitting at first. So so she's standing out there and she looks tiny, 5'2" maybe, and you're 6'4" probably, beefy, intimidating. So she knows she's in for it, really.
And are these duels usually to the death or to some sort of first pain, like what it's expected?
Yeah, somebody's got to yield.
Okay. So I'll step forward and say, sort of like puff myself up a little bit and say to her, this is far to come for such a cause, and I'll sort of like point to the audience and say, many here have seen what you care about. There would be no shame in simply yielding now.
It's too important. I can't yield.
I'll nod, like, yes, that, of course. Um, very, very well then. And yeah, I'll rush her. That's it.
Okay, hitting only for the first 5 minutes.
Hitting only for the first 5 minutes. Yeah.
Yeah, and you can feel the stuff kicking in too, right? I mean, you feel a sort of a unnatural energy, and immunity to, pain. So yeah, you can. So the way the crater works is, the book says, role play into it as far as you can. Role play into the situation as far as you can before you use the crater. So
Right.
you want to get to the point where you feel like, boy, we really can't go any further without without using it, right? I'm sorry, I'm gonna cough again. And I don't want to do that in the microphone. So an example I give in the game book is, oh man, is there's a conflict between two Minotaurs in the jungle, and they're fighting these two creatures. When would we use the crater during that fight? Boy, one of them manages to kill one of the creatures, and the other one is getting dragged off and nearly drowned. So we would have role played all the way through the first fight, the killing of the first creature, getting to the point where one Minotaur is almost going to be drowned, and then it's like, we really can't go any further. We need to use the crater at this point. So in this situation, we need to go into this a little bit before we're going to use the crater. We need to see an exchange of blows. We need to get to the point where, are you going to tear her arm out of the socket? Are you going to, how far do we go?
Okay. Well, so I mean, we have swords, like a sword and a shield, kind of for this duel, or just physically. Oh, just physical.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Yeah. So I think I'd want to just kind of like rush her and kind of like sort of knock her over.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So yeah, she's back. She's off her feet. She's on the ground. She's winded, right? But she manages to get up from that blow, and and come back at you, And she says, "I'm not gonna yield."
So I think after the first hit, I kind of step back, like, all right, so you want to do this? That's fine, right? And when she gets up, I shake my head and I say, you will yield. You can yield now, or you can yield when you're hurt.
You should yield.
So, and I actually get really concerned. Like, I'm thinking really hard. Like, that is unfortunate. Like, there's no, I almost kind of step back and kind of look off to the side. Like, it's going to cause trouble. And I look back at her, and does she seem to be coming at me, or is she going to do anything but stand there and take it?
No, I mean, she's trying to block herself, just in case you do something abrupt, she's trying to have a good, blocked stance, but she's not really attacking you.
Okay. And I'll turn and say, why should I yield?
Because your employer is bad for this community.
I think I'm going to hit her really hard once.
Oh, all right. Like in the face, or?
Yeah, I'm just going to smack her really hard.
All right, you break her nose. There's a spray of blood, from nose and mouth. She goes down really hard. Yeah. And she, it takes her a while to get up from it. It takes her a while to get up. And the crowd is it's not, I mean, it's a neighborhood, really. I mean, he's like a neighborhood judge. So,
right, yeah.
There's probably 30 people or 40 people here, but they're like, ooh, boo. she's got a few supporters,
Yeah.
but nobody managed to cough up enough money to help her with an actual proxy for this. So yeah, I mean, she manages to get up, and she says, yeah, she's got blood coming out of her mouth, and she says, you're, why are you doing this?
I uh, why do any of us do anything that we do? It's just to be who we are.
I'm doing this because it's important. You would feel better about yourself. You would feel better about yourself if you understood how important this is.
Why is this important?
Because he's corrupt.
He ruled the way you don't like. That doesn't make him corrupt.
He let my husband sell our daughter against my wishes.
Yes, that seems unfair. What would happen to me if I yielded this fight?
Your employer wouldn't be very happy.
Yeah. And she would become the judge.
She would become the judge, yeah.
I'm going to ask you one more time to yield, and then I'm going to really hurt you, because that is my job. Please yield.
I can't yield. I have to do what I have to do.
And what will you do if I kill you?
Well, the answer to that is pretty obvious. But I think, I think there's a good person inside of you. I don't think you'll do this.
There is no place for a naive judge. And I will. I'm gonna grab her and break her arm,
Oh,
pretty hard.
okay.
I'll just grab her and I'll take her arm and I'll just break it and then like kind of lift her up and throw her to the ground.
All right.
And I want to see if she gets back up.
So now we're going to use the crater. I don't think we can go any further.
Okay.
Without using it. So one of the handouts that I gave you is it's the text from the flaps of the game book, and one of the flaps has some strategy advice on it. So you want to take a look at that strategy advice. It's the right hand. It says, here's some beginning advice to get you started on strategizing for outcomes you want by what you put into the crater. So it gives you a breakdown. If you're in a dangerous situation, in a social conflict, if it seems uncertain, and you need to tell me what you're going to put in the into the crater.
All right. So how many tokens do I get to put in?
So that's based on your initial supply. You can put in whatever you want that you have access to. Whatever you want from your supply.
Okay.
So you started with how many courage? 2 or 3, something like that.
Yeah.
let's see what you started with.
I started with 2 courage.
Right. So you got 2 courage, 4 mind, 3 silence. Oh, I'm sorry. You traded away 2 silence, and you got 2 name, right?
Yeah.
So looking at the strategy advice. So all right. So I'm supposed to prime the crater first. So
Okay.
I just prime the crater, and usually what I do, we're all face to face, and I sort of, rattle them around a little bit to give you an idea of how many tokens I put in there. It's an imperfect communication. But the fewer I have in there, the easier it is for you to strategize what you want for an outcome. What I do is I put in tokens based on my reading of the situation. How likely is it that you might come to harm? How entrenched is someone in their resistance to your social pressures? And I'm going to put in tokens based on that. When you put in tokens, you put them in based on the outcome that you want to accomplish. It's not based on the fictional situation at all. It's what you want to achieve based on the resources that you have at your disposal. So even though you've been talking with her, even though you've been doing physical things, you can put in whatever you've got just based on how you want to, whatever outcome you want to achieve. So in this situation, you're, if you think it's a dangerous situation, then you want to look at that first paragraph, and it says maybe put in 2 or 3 courage tokens or 2 or 3 mind tokens. Alternately, you could put in your life token along with 1 or 2 other tokens you would hope get left behind. You only ever draw 4 tokens out of here. If I've got less than 4 in here and you put in less than 4, you might end up drawing them all. But you only ever draw 4. So anything that you don't draw out is a resource that you've lost. And that's why you end up in situations where you need to do refreshes.
All right. Cool. So I'll put in 1 life, 1 mind, and both my courage.
Okay. I'm putting them in for you. 1 life, 1 mind, and both courage. Alrighty.
Yeah.
Both courage. So, I'm mixing around. I'm not going to look, and we're going to draw out 4. 1 mind, 1 life, 1 no, and 1 courage. So what we do at this point is we look at the menu of crater outcomes, which was another one of the handouts that I gave you, and we try and look up. We start on the top, and we're looking for this combination. So if I look down the list, the first outcome, and I'll explain how this thing works. So the gray ones, if it's grayed out, it means if you've got it in your draw, we use it. But if you don't, and you only have the black ones, the black icons, you still satisfy it. So you could satisfy that first one with 2 gift tokens, or if you draw 4 gift tokens, you satisfy it. But if your extra 2 tokens, say you satisfy it with 2 gift tokens, and you got 2 other ones that like 2 courage or whatever that don't match it, then those 2 courage drop down, and we look it up to try and see if there's a second outcome on the menu. So you can satisfy more than one outcome that way. In this case, you don't have any gift tokens, so we don't satisfy. So you don't satisfy either of the first 2 outcomes. The next one's looking for a silence token and 2 no's. You don't have that either. You've got 1 no. The next one's looking for a single no and 2 silence tokens, and you don't have that either. The next one is looking for a silence, a name, and a no, and you don't have that. A silence and no other silence, and you don't have that. The next one is a life token, 2 skull tokens, and and 1 player token left in the crater. So, and you don't have that. So, so we keep looking down. Do we have a skull token and 2 courage? No, we don't have that. Do we have a name token and 2 courage? We don't have that. Do we have 2 mind and a skull? We don't have that. 2 mind and a no? We don't have that. So we're moving down into the next column. A mind and 2 no's? We don't have that. A name and a voice token. Remember those supernatural entities in the jungle? That's the voice icon with the eye on it. We don't have that. A voice and a skull, 2 skulls, we don't have that. 2 no's, we don't have that. A no token, a life token, and no skulls. We've got that. So the outcome is you are reckless. Decrease your name number by 1. Well, your name number's 0. So in this case, it stays at 0. But
well, no, my name number was 2.
You had 2 name tokens. The name number is what you refresh to.
Oh, that's right. Okay.
So that's in the little circle, but there's like a little blank for your where you put the name number. And I should have told everybody to put a little 0 in that blank.
Okay, cool.
But basically, you start at 0 and work your way up. So we've got that outcome, but we've still got 2 tokens, and we need to continue down to see if we find something else. So we've got a single courage and a single mind, and the next one's looking for life and gift. The next one's looking for a single name, a single skull, a single no. No, we don't have anything that matches any of these 2, so they're just they don't contribute to the outcome. So the outcome we've got is you are reckless. So we need to, and what this does, in this case it's just you in the scene, but but there could be other Minotaurs here as well. What the menu does is it gets us all on the same page. It's an oracle, and now we all know what needs to happen. You need to get yourself into a situation of having been reckless, and the way we interpret that also is your name. Your name token your name number goes down. Well, the book has some descriptions of what the individual outcomes mean. So we could look that one up, and it might give us a little bit more guidance on how to role play that. So let's look that up.
Real quick, Paul. So I do get some tokens back, right?
You do. You keep everything of yours that you drew out. So everything that was left behind is gone. So the no was mine, so you don't get that one back. But you get your life back, and you get your mind back, and you get your courage back.
Great. So I lost 1 courage in doing that.
Yeah, you did.
That's cool. Very cool. Okay.
So let's find the description for that one.
Page 80, okay. I think, Brendan.
Yeah, it is. It's page 80. You are reckless. Decrease your name number by 1. Heedlessness and misjudgments lessen the future's assurance in us. So it's basically saying, let's figure out how to get you to a point of having been heedless, you've made a misjudgment, you're reckless in this situation, and your name is your name number is an indication of your stature, who you're going to be in the future. So it's saying, the future's less confident in who you are.
Yeah, I was thinking that it would make sense that at this point, she's been very persuasive. So I was thinking it would make sense that if she stands up again, that I could yield, and that would put my future in pretty bad sorts because I've screwed up the one job I have.
Yeah, that's a pretty good that's a pretty good interpretation of that's a pretty good interpretation of a name token reduction, but let's get some recklessness in there. Okay. So you break her arm, right?
Right.
And she screams when you break her arm. do you throw her on the ground? Do you?
Yeah, no, I really try to put her away, right? Like
Yeah.
I want to try to knock her down and knock her out, so that because I think it's naive to just believe that, oh well, you should give up because I am right. Seems to be
Yeah.
a naive position. But if she's strong enough to take it at some point, I can't continue, right? So this is me trying to skirt the line.
Right. So she, right. I mean, she screams. Maybe you think that she's blacked out from it or whatever.
Yeah.
So you.
Yeah.
But then she kind of rolls over, and she's, she's clutching her broken arm, and she gets up, and she says, "You're gonna have to do better than that."
I'll look at her and I'll look at the people, and I assume that there's like probably some kind of silence now, right? I mean
Oh yeah.
it's all fun and games when people are kind of like punching each other, but when like there's the people's arms are hanging off at weird angles, that people get kind of serious. I'll turn and I'll look at the crowd, and I'm going to say, the judge is wrong, and I yield.
Yeah. She she kind of she's pretty surprised by that, and then you say, then you see the judge. I mean, then you see the judge, I mean, he's coming out, and he comes out into the middle of you, I mean, he pushes past the crowd, and he comes out. He's like, "What? You had her. They know it." And she says, I think I'm the judge now. And he looks over at you, and he looks over at her, he looks at you, he looks at her, and he says, I suppose I can accept that. And he walks over to her, and holds out his hand. And she's like, reaches out to hold his hand, and then he slips a knife into her ribs.
Oh.
And her knees buckle. My wife is in the hallway right now going, "Oh!"
Yeah, that's not cool.
Yeah,
I think I'll.
So I think that's a pretty good,
that's a good
misjudgment on your part,
Yes.
Geez, if I yield, it's all gonna work out, right?
Yeah, right. Like, what is he gonna do, right? What is he gonna do to me? Come on, bring it, right? And then he hurts her. That's great.
All right, so why don't we cut from your scene, and we'll be able to get Rich in here and see a little bit more of the game mechanics. So all right, so let me tell you about another situation, right? So there's this, there's So-God Imperious. He's another Imperious. He's got a residence that's on top of a hot springs. It's got an underground pool, basically. And what he does is he does these these memory washings, right? People who, they've done something they think is discreditable, or they, something they don't like, or a relationship that just, they behaved badly, and, they don't want to remember that stuff. So this sulfurous, water, he's got techniques where he can immerse you in this water, and he can sort of release these memories that you don't want to have, and embed them in rocks, and these porous rocks or whatever. So then the memories are gone from you, and they're embedded in these rocks, and you're it's his, it's what he does. It's his job, right? Well, so Rich, you're his assistant. You help him out with this stuff. Well, his wife is a snake hobbyist. She's super into snakes. She's raised these giant boa constrictors and venomous snakes and stuff, and it's like, it's a hobby thing for her. Well, he came to you and he says, and again, you're all nameless Minotaurs, so he says, you gotta come, there's been an accident. And he hustles you down the stairs to where you're down in the, looking down into the area of the hot springs, where there's basically like a big sulfurous natural hot tub. And there's this giant snake there, and it's got this huge bulge in its belly. I mean, this thing is, 45 feet long, and it's got this big bulge in it, and he says, my wife, her snake ate our daughter. we have to do something. We can't let it digest her. We got to get the girl out of there. If we get the girl out of there, we can get another girl, and I can move my daughter's memories over into her, and everything will be okay. So let's go down there and kill the snake now.
Put my hand on his shoulder. Your daughter is dead.
But she's not digested yet. I can still get the memories out of her brain, and put them in another girl, and no one will know.
You will know.
It'll be her. It'll be her. So much of who we are is our personality, and so let's get down there and let's get this snake dead and cut it open and make
what
things
of
right.
The girl?
What?
The one whose memories you would take. What of her?
What let's not talk about that now. Step one. We need step one.
Yes. Give me a knife or a sword.
Okay, yeah, he does. He's got a family heirloom. It's a steel sword that's been in the family for generations. It's a steel, short sword. He gives it to you, and he says, and he's got like, a bronze knife, flaying knife or something like that, So he's like, I'm right behind you.
Now we'll walk down to the snake.
Okay, it's pretty lethargic. It's but it's huge, and it's wrapped around this underground cavern. It's pretty content right now with its belly full of little girl.
And we'll chop off its head.
Okay, so it's pretty lethargic. I guess it could be a little dangerous. So maybe we should use the crater and see how it goes. So I will prime the crater. And you can tell me what you're going to put in.
I imagine it will take courage. How much courage can I put in?
All of it.
Yeah, you can put in all of it if you want. You started with 3, is that right? Or
4.
you started with 4. You could put in 4. The strategy advice says 2 or 3.
I'll
If you
put
look at
in
the
3. I think there is more to do after this.
okay, so 2 courage, 3 courage. All right, I'm gonna draw them all out. 1 courage, 2 courage, 3 courage, 1 skull. All I put in was 1 skull, reflecting the fact that it was pretty lethargic and not likely to be very dangerous, but if you strategized poorly, you might have gotten an unfortunate outcome there. So let's look down and see. The first couple of outcomes are gift token related. Then you need no's. You get all the way down to let's see here. Right. The outcome that says 1 skull, and it's got 2 black courage and 1 gray courage. So that's your exact outcome right here. You act with physical confidence or skill for a dramatic outcome in your favor. So we would. So you get them all back. You get all your courage back, and we'll role play your outcome of successful accomplishment against the snake. It probably just lifts its head, looks you right in the eye, rolls its neck over a little bit. So you've got a good angle, and you can cut his head off.
Step 1, sandal near the crease of its jaw, and I hack downwards until the head is removed.
Awesome. All right. So the Imperious guy, he's pumped. Awesome. Let's gut it. So you gut it, and you get this somewhat digested girl out of there, and he gets her in the water, and he starts putting her memories in rocks, to have them for later. And you know what? We can cut from your scene, and we can pick up with step 2, on the next time around. We should let's see. So who should we cut back to here? Let's cut back to yeah, let's see here. Let's see. Let's go back to Brendan. So,
my street performer boss was coming up with his horrible skit to cast dirt upon the fortune teller Dathafy.
Yeah. Yeah. So you've come up with this terrible skit, right? I mean, he paints himself up like her in, garish colors, and imitates her voice in a mocking way, and you play, people from the audience asking, and he gives these horrible fortunes out, like, oh, you should do this, or you should do that, or you should, you should have a dozen children, and you should have I mean, he's really, he comes up with dumb stuff, and then you play dead. You put on the death mask and writhe around and play dead. And then he's like, "Oh no, another one of my clients has died after I read the fortune." It's a terrible skit. You've got a couple people watching it. But it might be effective.
Yeah, I mean, I'm watching as I'm lying dead with the death mask on to try and see if anybody is buying this load of crap.
Yeah, so you guys do this skit, and at the end of it, a man, comes up to you. You guys are, you don't get very many tips, and you're still hungry, and a man comes up to you and he says, "Do people really die after she reads their fortune?"
Well, we are performers who put on performances that are both fiction and not.
Well, that's this skit just seems kind of like a bad idea. That
If you have any such concerns, please bring them to the writer of the skit, who is my employer. His name is Sabu. Yes. I do not believe that you have much to worry about from the fortunes, but then again, I am but a Minotaur.
Yeah, what? How would you feel if somebody thought it was real and that?
Well, do you think anybody who watched thinks it's real?
I mean, I did until I asked you. I mean, or I thought maybe, I mean, it's a cult, right? I mean, fortune telling is a cult. I mean, anything could happen.
Well, perhaps the purpose of our skit is instead to force the mind to question what it sees, to better unveil the truth. If our skit proposed an idea which you found distasteful and concerning, but you were unwilling to question it, well, then you have learned nothing. But by questioning it, the skit has served you. And in fact, the true wisdom of Sabu has shown through.
Yeah, so Sabu, I mean, Sabu comes over at that point, and he's like, he's looking at the two of you, and he's like, and he's looking at the guy, and he looks him right in the eye, and he says, "It's real. People have really died."
God damn it. What a schmuck. All right.
People have died. We're just trying to get the word out.
Well, they have died deaths of losing their futures. Once the future is known, it no longer lives.
He looks at you like, "What are you talking about? They've died. Their bodies died."
I'm trying not to make unsubstantiated claims here.
The woman needs to be stopped.
All right. Yeah, I turn to Sabu and I actually sort of put my body so that I'm facing away from the guy who came up to us, like the audience member. And I say quietly to him, spreading untruths serves us not at all, particularly if any ever discover that they are untrue. You think we are hungry now? Think of how hungry we will be when they find out we are liars.
He puts his finger on your chest and he's like, "You are probably the worst employee I have ever had."
I accept this, but I am also currently the only employee that you have.
Well, there is that. All right, so he turns and sort of stomps away. He looks, he kind of looks back at the guy and he says, "It's real," And we can cut from your scene.
Sure.
And we go to Jen. So let's see here. So yeah, so we'll pick up right where we left off. She's still, I mean, you cleaned her up, got her something to drink, and she's like, I don't know what to do. For days, there was a woman that I read her fortune, and I know, she's going to do this horrible thing, and I really just, and then this with this, creepy Minotaur who tried to strangle me. I just really don't know what to do. It's not going to be the first person that tries to kill me.
Is there no way you could use what you see to your advantage to protect yourself?
Well, I mean, I know this woman. I mean, she came and had her fortune read. I know what she's gonna do. So, I mean, what do I do about it? How do I know that she'd harm me? That it's gonna go bad. All right, I'll tell you, and then you could tell me what to do. She wants to turn herself into a snake. She found a snake out in the jungle that used to be a human. It was a man who turned himself into a snake. He was a criminal, and years ago, I gave evidence against him, but he escaped justice by turning himself into a snake. She's going to try to do something to me in revenge for him so that he'll teach her how to be a snake. And I mean, you've seen me the past week. I haven't been able to sleep. So I know she's going to do it, but I don't know when, and I don't know what am I supposed to do?
Probably not go out alone.
Yeah, yeah, that was not well thought out.
I'm happy to accompany you anywhere. I can provide some measure of protection.
Oh yeah, I mean she she grips you by the forearm and says, I appreciate that. I just don't know. I mean, maybe it's time to move on. Maybe it's time, I don't know, to do different work.
You are very talented. You're good at what you do. You shouldn't hide that. But maybe moving on would be good.
Yeah. Yeah. Maybe we should find another part of the city. Yeah. So, okay, we can cut from your scene. There isn't always a crater draw in every scene. I think one of the things you realize when you play the game a little bit is your silence tokens are a resource that you have that you've got a few. You basically spend them. You can break silence. You can say what you want. You can voice. You can break silence intentionally to because you have tokens to spend. So you'll find that you don't play the whole game close to the vest. You get yourself to the point where you actually decide how you want to move things around by spending the silence tokens. We can cut back to Mark. We could do the end of session thing. What makes sense to do next?
I think I'd like to cut back to Rich for just a second to see kind of how that resolves, if that's cool, and then maybe call it.
Yeah.
We could totally do that. When I'm running the game, I don't cut in a perfect circle every time. I cut back and forth in little bits. So yeah, let's go back to Rich. So yeah, I mean, he's made the rocks, and he says, all right, step 2, we need to find a girl.
No.
What do you mean?
That is not just to steal a girl and steal her life and memory.
Okay. If I don't replace my daughter, my wife is going to be charged with criminal neglect. We can't have that. Because it was her
sorry for
slate.
your loss.
We've got to go get ourselves a girl.
No.
I can't do it alone.
Then it should not be done.
Yeah, I think you're probably breaking silence at that point. So I would probably take a silence token from you.
I'm curious how I'm breaking silence.
Yeah, it's so again, silence is the fruitful void. We'd have to arrive at a. I think you have a pretty good argument that you're not breaking it, to be honest, because you've talked justice. You haven't said this is what I want. You've said I don't want to kidnap a girl. not, you know, I want to be able to think of myself as a Minotaur who wouldn't do that, would be a lot, you know, closer to breaking silence. And in that sort of gray area, you know, if we were, you know, if it felt like you were saying, I want to be able to think of myself as a Minotaur who wouldn't do that, then it's, you know, then that's, you're in the area of, you know, I've probably broken silence. In your case, you played it really close to the vest, so all right, we won't take the silence token for that.
Cool.
It's part of the collective fun of the game. It's to figure out where the edges of silence are, you know. So all right, so you don't want to do it. He's like, fine, I'll do it. Give me the sword.
It should not be done. It is not. If I will act, it is murder.
You know, I don't have time for this conversation right now.
You do have time. Your daughter is dead. Her memories are saved.
Yeah, but if somebody finds out before we get this done, my wife is going to
found out.
Well, what are you gonna do about it?
What happened to your daughter? Why was she here with the snake?
I don't know. My wife was, you know, distracted probably, and didn't, you know, wasn't watching her.
Perhaps you should use the rocks.
For what?
Perhaps they will ease your pain. You should not murder.
So now you're getting close to breaking silence by telling him what you want him to do. So, yeah, let's take your silence token at that point. You've got 2 or 3? You've got
3.
3. So you're down to 2, which, you know, isn't really a danger zone. Oh, I totally know what I should have done with Jen in her scene. I'll tell you what it was. The when a Minotaur goes frantic and runs to the jungle, other Minotaurs can get swept up, and there's a special draw from the crater that you use to do that. So what I should have done is the Minotaur that got injured by Dothafi, you know, he's pretty worked up. He goes frantic, but he comes by. So then Jen would have had to draw from the crater to see if she could resist going frantic and following him into the jungle, and would have had that, you know, you know, the opportunity of a jungle encounter at that point. Not thinking on live broadcasting, but in any case, so we've taken your silence token. You're not in danger of going frantic yet, but he says, "I gotta do what I gotta do," and you know, he's turning away to go, you know, and try and find a girl to kidnap. The rocks are still sort of piled up down here in the near the hot tub.
I will follow him.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, he goes out in the street. He, you know, he's just sort of wandering around. He doesn't have a very good plan. He's just sort of wandering down the streets, you know, looking for some girl to abduct.
I will let him look. I'm not offering assistance.
Okay. You know, eventually he finds, like, you know, a street urchin girl who's, like, begging for begging for seeds and stuff on the street corner. And he goes up to her and he says, if you come with me, I'll make you a meal. Come back to my house and I'll make you a meal. And she gets up and she's gonna come back to the house.
I will follow.
Okay. So he brings her back to the house, and he gives her food, and he says, "Do you like to swim?" And she says, "Yeah." He says, "I got something to show you. I have a pool. You can swim." And leads her down into the basement, into the cavern under the house. And she says, "Oh, she's excited about the pool. Goes right in." And so then he starts in with his rituals that he uses to sort of, he starts putting the rocks in the water. He starts. He's basically gonna do the, memory replacement.
Little one, are you happy? Have you been happy, begging, as you have?
No.
Do you want to live?
Yeah, her eyes are like, what? Yes.
You should not do this.
Yeah, he looks at you and he says, "You know what? Just stand back. I'll deal with you later."
If ever you had love for your daughter, is she not someone else's daughter?
I will deal with you later. So, all right. So we're pretty deep into a social disagreement here, I think. There are creator outcomes where you can convince somebody to change your mind. So let's do one. I am going to prime the creator. So you need to read the situation, because I put in different tokens based on if I think the situation could get violent and you could come to harm, than if I think that he's just entrenched in his disinterest in being convinced. And your strategy is a little different for each of those.
Yeah. I think. Can I spend mind here?
You can. So like that third paragraph on the right hand flap, it says, in a social conflict you want your Minotaur to overcome, put in 2 or 3 mind.
Okay.
If you're comfortable with your Minotaur maybe coming to a compromise with the opposition, put in 1 or 2 mind. If you want to maybe change your opposition's mind about something, put in a name and a silence.
Okay. I don't have a name because didn't choose that at the beginning. Can I put in 2 mind and anything else, or I kind of
Yeah,
choose mind, I stick with mind.
you can. Your best strategy is to be focused. The more diversity you have in what you put in, the more likely you're gonna get an incoherent outcome. And when you get an incoherent outcome, you end up matching things at the bottom of the menu, and those are usually unfavorable. So you're best off picking a strategy, sticking with it, 2 or 3 tokens, and
all right, 2 mind then.
Okay. Oops, I dropped. Okay, 1, 2 mind. All right, we're drawing 4. 1 mind. 1 no. 2 mind. 1 skull. So you can see what I put in there is a combination of no tokens and skull tokens. So there was some potential that it could get violent, and maybe that's what happens, and there was some potential that it was just, entrenched disagreement. So let's see what we got. If I'm looking down the chart on the left-hand side, and I'm probably a lot quicker at reading this than you are,
right.
The first outcome that I see that we match is it's the bottom of that first column. It's 2 mind and a skull. So the outcome is your cleverness brings an outcome in your favor and get a name token. So you just got a name token as an outcome of this. And we're going to need to come up with a nice, you're going to need to role play a nice clever outcome. And I'm on your side in this, right? I mean, we're role playing towards the same outcomes. I need to do things with NPCs that help you achieve this outcome. The next token, and that leaves us with 1 no token. And if we continue with this no token down the full menu, we get to the bottom result. You make a dramatic mistake, an error. Boy, that's a hard combination of outcomes to have happen together. Cleverness brings an outcome in your favor, and you get a name token, but you make a dramatic mistake or an error. Usually what happens when people roleplay this kind of thing is they make a mistake, and then they overcome it, But there are other things that you can do. You can actually assign outcomes to other Minotaurs. So if there was another Minotaur in this situation, he could have put a token in as well into the crater, and then you would divide these outcomes up. It's like, all right, I'll take the clever one, and you get to make the mistake, or I'll take the mistake, and you get to do the clever one. As the Minotaur at the center of the inflection, you get your say over that. But you can also assign outcomes to NPCs, even ones that you're in opposition with, by spending a name token and role-playing some discreditable action that you take. So there are times during the game where a Minotaur might get a death outcome or a harm outcome or something, an outcome that's not in their favor, and they say, you know what, I'm going to spend a name token and I'm going to assign that outcome to the other guy that I'm up against. So he gets the, injury, or he gets the, whatever. And I just do something kind of discreditable. I cheat in the duel, or, I have an envenomed dagger that I stick him with, or whatever. So you do have that option in this situation. You've got a name token that you just earned, so you could spend it and give one of these outcomes to the other guy, or we could just role play forward and we can figure out how you satisfy both the dramatic mistake and or the error that you make, but then get a cleverness, outcome that that plays out in your favor.
Well, we're coming up on time, so maybe we kind of talk through this.
Yeah.
The soldier, my Minotaur, was hoping to guilt him into flinching or not being able to carry through with this, but by forcing him to realize exactly what he was doing. So that was my hope for cleverness. Now, what would be the mistake? Perhaps he loses his employ, or he does turn in like the guy has to turn in his wife. I don't know. That's
yeah. So like you could dramatic mistake could be revealing information you have that gets him angry or something, or maybe you provoke him in some way that you come to a sort of incidental harm.
What if he's only hoping to avoid blame for his wife? What if my Minotaur accepted blame for the neglect?
That's awesome. That is a very clever outcome. That's right down the middle of nice dramatic mistake and also a clever outcome that's going to get you a name token. Totally satisfies both of those, I think. He says, yeah, he says, yeah, so he says, well, it's that important to you, huh? This little girl, fine then. I wasn't sure it was going to work anyway. He sort of gathers up all the rocks. He says, let's go turn you over to the judge.
Very well.
Yeah, that's an awesome outcome. So you absolutely earned your name token, and the game would play out with you, suffering the consequences of having been the designated babysitter and letting the girl get eaten by the snake. So, and we can cut from that scene. If we were to continue playing, I would absolutely, I like the idea of the that one Minotaur going frantic. I would absolutely use it right now anyway. I'd say, he's injured, he went back home, and he spent the whole night stewing on it or whatever, and by the morning he's talked himself up into a lather, and he goes frantic, and Jen's Minotaur would encounter him, and she'd have to draw and see whether she goes frantic and off into the jungle or not. It's there are always ways to use a good idea, even if you missed your timing the first time. So all right, so let's do the last bit of the game session. So the last bit is what you have your nameless conversation. The group of you invent nameless Minotaurs. Figure out where there would be some Minotaurs who are perceptive of some of the things that happen during the session, and they get to have a conversation about it. And if they have a conversation about your Minotaur's storyline, and you're down to just one or two silence, I think that's the rule. I'd have to look it up. I think if you're down to just one or two, then you get a name number increase. So have at it, and I'm just a spectator.
Sure. And so just for time, we've only got a couple of minutes here, so we can just do this super quick. So, like, I mean, I'm thinking of if the Minotaurs were maybe in the audience of either some sort of the judge is making a judgment, like maybe it's even with Rich's Minotaur, or maybe it's a show.
I like the idea of the judge making a judgment about Rich's Minotaur, or having already made the judgment or going to make the judgment. Kind of ties some things together.
Yeah.
And so it's the little trial's breaking up, and the four Minotaurs are like just among the audience members walking away.
I do not think the new judge will look favorably on the death of the young girl.
Do you think any judge would look favorably upon the death of a young girl?
Some judges can be bribed.
All judges can be bribed.
This new judge seems just.
The case is so simple. He was tasked with watching the girl, and then she was eaten by the snake. It seems ironclad.
You pretend that truth is real.
Truth is real.
Yes, truth is real.
Whose? If each has a truth of their own and each truth is real, then truth is not real.
Nevertheless, the Minotaur will be punished.
Truth has little to do with punishment.
This is true.
See what you did there.
Awesome.
That's a pretty good. That's a pretty good ending line for a for a nameless
Yeah.
conversation. You know, you've accomplished what you needed to accomplish, which was you decided to focus on. You know, you're like a little Greek chorus, basically. You know, you've decided to focus on one Minotaur storyline, and it was Rich's storyline. You had your, you know, you made your, you know, you did your Greek chorus, and Rich is down to just one or two silence, so he gets a name number increase. He'll have a name number of 1 going forward. When he does a name refresh, he'll refresh to 1 token, so he can continually replenish that single name token. So yeah, you got the job done. It's a good way to end a game session.
Yeah.
Solid. Thanks, Paul.
Thank you so much for running, Paul. Yeah, this was really interesting.
Thanks for having me. It's me. I do not get tired of running the game. So
that is always a good sign.
Yeah.
If people are interested in picking up a copy of Clay That Woke, or maybe even some of those super awesome tokens that you were playing with, where can they do that?
Yeah, I've got a page with PayPal buttons on it. I can if I paste the link in, does it show up in the does it show up for people watching it or no?
I can annotate it in, and we can put it in the description.
Okay.
Right here.
Yeah.
Yep. So we'll add the link to make sure people know where they can get Clay That Woke.
All right. I'm gonna just paste it to you. Since I haven't yet linked it from the front page of my my website, so it's still sort of. I just need to edit the front page.
Well, thank you so much again, Paul, for running. Thank you, Mark, Jen, and Rich for being here and playing. And thank you for anybody who watches. If you like this, go ahead and subscribe to Indie Plus. We do more cool videos and exhibition game videos in that direction. Thank you for pointing first, Jen, because that meant I knew which way to point. That's the button.
You're pointing the wrong way, Brendan.
God damn it! It looks right on my screen. All right.
I know.
I tried. This is what I get. All right. Thanks, everybody. Have a good night.
Thank you, Paul.
Awesome. Thanks.